it's Betsy, and today we're going to do a chit chat get ready with me. Now, I know I've done a lot of these lately, but I wanted to go over how my low buy was going during the first month, or almost first month. Now, before we jump into it, I did want to mention my earrings. Anytime I have on like fun earrings, people ask. My friend Danica just started a business called Britney Bears. So as you can see, it's got her social media, so Instagram and Twitter, and her email address. But aren't these the absolute cutest? She has a ton of different styles, so I do recommend you checking her out. Now, I'm not going to talk about the makeup I'm using today because I don't think that that's always the most important thing whenever you're doing a chit chat get ready with me. I will try to remember to link it, but I make no guarantees. But as y'all know, or maybe you don't, I decided to start a low buy at the end of September. And part of the reason why I decided to start the low buy was because I was going through and doing my mid-year declutter, and I realized I had a problem. And until I actually started looking at it, I didn't realize how out of control it had actually gotten, because, you know, until you're actually kind of confronted by things, it's hard to tell. But I will kind of explain. Now, at the end of 2019, I had decided to go on a no buy because, again, my collection was out of control, and I was like, you know, let's try and see if I can get some more use out of my makeup products. But then 2020 and the panty started, and that threw everything for a loop. So I quit my no buy because it was like, well, why am I going to continue to do this? It wasn't making me happy. But during that time period, during the beginning of everything, I was super duper depressed because we typically go like to the movies once a week as a family. We love to go to the movies. We would go out to dinner a lot, go to the museums, the zoos, vacations, that kind of thing. Well, since everything's happened, we really haven't done any of that. But it was like, well, if I'm not spending my money, my disposable income on those things, well, I will start spending it on makeup and review to grow my channel, or at least that's kind of what I was telling myself, because all in all, I wasn't reviewing everything that I was purchasing. A lot of it got put away because I bought too much at once, got put away without ever being used. So the amount of stuff in my collection and every part of it was crazy. I had over 400 palettes, and I don't think I had counted like the last 30 or so that I got. And I have been selling stuff on Mercari, and I have set up pretty good rules for myself for this low buy that I think I can easily stick to, and so far have. But yeah, it was like, why am I doing this? I needed to have a serious conversation with myself because, one, I want to be more of a conscious consumer. Two, we want to move to Florida. And when we move to Florida, I want to downsize the size of my house. I want to buy either a townhome, preferably, or a condo. So that right there somewhat limits you on space, which is completely fine. But I want to have things. I don't want to have to buy a bigger house to be able to fit everything that I'm purchasing. Hopefully that makes sense on what I'm saying. But, you know, and that was one thing that I was thinking. I mean, like, if we moved to Florida, between my office setup, it was like how much space do I have to have for all this stuff that I'm accumulating, if that makes sense? So that was part of it. And then on top of that, with all of my health issues that I have had, I got worried that if something happened to me, then how would everybody be able to react with dealing with all of my stuff? And when I say all of my stuff, I tend to own a lot of stuff. Like, it's not just makeup, even though makeup is probably the worst area, but I have tons of pairs of shoes. I've got tons of books. I've got tons of movies. Anything I do, I tend to go a little bit obsessive and overboard. And part of that is probably that I grew up extremely poor. So stuff seems to be like, that's how you show how you've made it, if that makes sense. And it was like, well, why am I doing this? Because it's not that I'm extremely attached to things, because I would go through, do declutters, and get rid of, you know, makeup and just give it away. Even if it hadn't been used. Or even if I thought it was good, it was just like, well, this is taking up too much room in my collection and let's get rid of it. But yeah, it was, and it became super overwhelming. So when I decided to go on this low buy, I set myself up, I think, for success, or at least I feel like that at this point, where there are certain brands, 3 brands, Natasha Denona, Melt, and Pat McGrath, that I can buy whatever release from, because I know that if I don't give myself that leeway, then I will get, you know, you kind of get depressed almost, which I did when I went on a complete and utter not low buy, but the no buy. And I don't know if it was just because of like not being able to buy stuff, or because I started it and then the panty started. And then it was like, what do I do? Because everything at that point in my life, or at least it felt like it was kind of going up in smoke, because couldn't go on vacation. Everything was just out of whack. And I mean, don't get me wrong, it still is. We still aren't going anywhere. We're still not doing anything, but I am trying to get a better hold on things, because I just don't need all of this. That's part of it, is I just don't need the amount of stuff that I was accumulating, because the amount of stuff, and as I said, it's more than just makeup. We've been slowly decluttering the entire house. It's clothes, it's books, it's movies, it's all this. And it was like, okay. And actually the thought of decluttering and actually getting rid of stuff makes me feel really good. And it makes me feel very much so less overwhelmed. And I don't think people realize that how much too much can cause complete and utter chaos, I guess is the best way to put it, in your life. Or at least for me, it felt like that's kind of what was happening. But with that being said, I'm not going to go through and completely get rid of everything. I mean, that's just not me. I want to have things. I love having makeup. I love having options. I think that that is very much important to me. But I wanted to be more of a conscious consumer. And a lot of people definitely support this decision. And part of it is, it's like whenever you're on YouTube, you feel like you got to try to find your footing when it comes to things and what works best for you. And what works best for you may not work best for other people, but it's when you're starting out and stuff like that, you're kind of getting your footing and figuring out what works. But you're also, because of what you see and what you're used to seeing, you tend to not really copy, but you do some of the same things that other people are doing, because that's kind of what you feel like you need to do. You follow what you see as successful. So with that being said, I wanted to have these big, massive YouTuber makeup collection. You know what I'm saying? And I'm proud of my collection, but do I need it all? No, I really don't. And that's what I'm realizing, because part of the thing is, you know, it's kind of like with any other business, no idea feels new anymore. You start to look at things and you realize that, you know, everything, or at least for me, it's like, oh, this has been done and this has been done 20,000 times. What do I have that I can offer myself? Well, for me, sitting down and thinking about it, it's like, okay, well, I can offer my real authentic self when I'm discussing makeup. And I also want people to realize you can think things are beautiful. You can want things, but that doesn't mean you have to buy them, or you don't have to buy them as soon as they come out. You know, I think we've gotten conditioned in our heads because of beauty companies and beauty vloggers that you need all this, and you don't. You don't need it all. Do you need to buy the new eyeshadow palette because it's got a different undertone of purple? Probably not, or at least I don't. And again, if you want to buy it, that's perfectly fine too. You are allowed to do you, boo. And I want people to understand that that is not me making these decisions for myself. In no part does that make me, I am not holier than thou. I am not better than anybody else. I'm still trying to figure this stuff out just like everybody else. But, you know, I'm also trying to be more conscious of what I am purchasing. I think that that is extremely important, because it's kind of like anything else when you're dealing with social media, that, you know, you tend to stop and forget that just like you're influenced, and even if you're like, oh, I'm never influenced, everybody's influenced. Now, it doesn't mean that you're influenced actually by like influencers on YouTube, but you can be influenced by your friends. You know, the phrase keeping up with the Joneses has been around forever because people feel this competition with everybody else. Which I don't always think is a bad thing. I don't think it's the best thing, but I don't think it is a bad thing. But it's also, you can stop and be satisfied with what you've got. It's like, I was talking to my husband about it. It was like, you know, when did it become that we have to keep earning more to buy more? That's where I'm at, and that's what I'm feeling about stuff. It's like, you know, where you're at, it feels like in our society, or this is what I feel, is that you want to kind of keep up with what everybody else is doing, and you've got to show improvement. It's like whenever you're having babies and people are like, oh, when are you gonna have another one? Or if you have a boyfriend, well, when are you gonna get engaged? Or when are you gonna get married? You know, it's like one thing, once you reach that, it's like, okay, come on, now it's the next thing. Now it's the next thing. And, you know, I have spent so much of my life trying to reach the next thing that I haven't enjoyed the last thing. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, that's part of it. It's like, I'm not enjoying the things I'm buying. Like, I get the initial high of buying makeup, or buying anything. I think, and that's something, it is a pleasure receptor thing, and everybody deals with it. I don't know, some people I know deal with it worse, but I don't know what the proper answer is for it. But for me, it's like, okay, let's take a step back and really think about what I'm purchasing and why I'm purchasing it, because that's where the trouble came in for me. So, as new releases have come out, I have sat and thought. Now, there have been things that have piqued my interest that I have said no to, like the Glam Light open bar, whatever, that happy hour collection that came out. So Glam Light came out with 4 palettes: the wine, the dirty martini, the chocolate martini, and the margarita. One was a neutral brown palette, one was a green palette, which you know has set my heart aflutter. One was a purple palette, and then one was more of a rainbow palette. But looking at the palettes, I realized, one, do I need another green palette? No, I really don't. I have so many green eyeshadows, it's not even funny. It is a monochromatic palette. It is a 15 pan monochromatic palette. That is a lot of the same kind of shades, especially when you own other monochromatic palettes. So I said no to them. Now, I've seen a lot of reviews. I know that the quality of things, like the makeup in it, is good, but I am actually very glad that I said no, because I would have used each palette once. It would have gotten stuck in my collection. And I did declutter some Glam Light. I decluttered the Paint Pro palette volume 1, the Paint Pro palette volume 2, which were both rainbow palettes. I got rid of the chocolate donut palette, and I think I got rid of something else from Glam Light. I may be wrong. The reason why I got rid of them is because I kept Michaela, I kept Cake, I kept Ice Cream Dream. It's like, do I need another rainbow palette? Do I need more of the same colors from the same brand? I don't. Because part of the thing is, again, if there's differences, the amount of difference that is in it isn't something most people are going to notice. Like, whenever you're talking about eye makeup, especially eye makeup, that you're talking about an area that's about 1 inch by about 2 inches. You know, some people it might be a little bigger, some people it might be a little smaller, but roughly that is kind of what you're looking at. So when you stop to be like, okay, well, that's what I'm looking at. When you go to blend out a purple, are you going to be able to tell all the differences in the slight shade variance? I'm not, especially when you're talking about this area. I mean, it is what it is. And that's okay to admit. It is okay to be like, okay, I see undertones, and I want to have the most colors of everything in the world, if that makes sense. Like, when I was a kid, if I got crayons, I wanted the big 150 count or 200 count crayons or markers or whatever, because I like to have multiple. Like for my craft stuff, I want to have all the colors under the sun, but I don't need all of the colors under the sun. And that is something that I am coming to terms with. And again, it's not because I can't afford it. It's like, why do I feel the need to show that I can buy it? Oop, I dropped my lid to my eyelash glue. But that was part of it. It's like, okay, well, I don't need it. So I said no. Do I regret it? Honestly, I don't. And even if I did, when my low buy's over, they're not limited edition, so I can buy them. And Glamlight does huge sales. So again, if I want it, I can get it, but I don't have to go and pay full price. That's, again, something that I am learning, because if you miss something, something else will be coming out pretty quickly right behind it. It's like the Beauty Bay Opulence palette. That almost got me, but I decided against it because once I actually looked at it, there were so many similarities between the Opulence palette and the Book of Magic, which I own, and I love Beauty Bay's formula. Don't get me wrong. Beauty Bay is probably my favorite affordable eyeshadow brand. Like, I really think that their quality of their mattes and their shimmers are phenomenal. I like the style of shimmers that they do. I like their mattes, which to me is some of the most important parts. Is, do I like both? And they're inexpensive. I think Opulence was like 20 bucks, and shipping from Beauty Bay, if you decide to pay for it, isn't super expensive. So it's like, oh, well, it's not a whole lot. Or at least that's kind of what I would tell myself all the time. But then when you actually start to stop and look at what you're spending, you know, $20 times 100 adds up really quick, because when you're buying all the ColourPop and all the other inexpensive stuff, it's just because, well, oh, it gives me material for my channel, that money still adds up, and it still is money. It's still cost, you know, it's not free. And even if you're a YouTuber that makes money off of YouTube, why would you spend everything that you are making on just makeup? Or for me, just makeup. Because again, once you actually stop and look at things, it's like, why am I making these decisions? And that's part of it, is I have to stop myself and think about things, and think about why I'm making these decisions, and then how to move forward with it. Because again, that is part of it, because it's hard. And you have to go with your gut on what you're doing. But I said no. Huda Beauty released, I don't know if it's completely released, the Rose Quartz palette. I think it's a beautiful, but I got rid of most of my Huda Beauty palette. I kept Naughty and Mercury in Retrograde and some of the little 9 pans, but other than that, I got rid of most of them. Why? Because Huda tends to be quite a bit repetitive. A lot of it is, like when you looked at the new nudes, a lot of those colors were also in Naughty Nudes. It was also in a lot of the 9 pans, and it's also a lot that is in Rose Quartz. So knowing this, it's like, okay, I just don't need it. It's not that I don't want it, it's I don't need it. And there's a difference between need and want. And I feel like, for myself personally, I have kind of forgotten that there is a difference between need and want. I'm back. I had to stop because the train was coming. But what I was saying is there is a difference between need and want. And it is okay to want things, but it is also okay not to buy everything that you want. It's kind of like whenever you have kids. If every time you go to the store, and I know this from being a parent, and you buy them something, they tend to expect it. And then when you don't buy it for them, they get angry, they get upset, and it makes them feel like they've done something wrong. So it's kind of like when you spoil. You know, you want to have where things are actually worth it and they feel more like a reward. or at least that's how I look at things, is I want things, if I'm going to buy something that I want it to feel more reward style versus just like, oh, Betsy purchased more makeup. And it's not always the reward style, I guess is the best way to put it. It's, I want to feel like not only that I want it, but that I'm going to use it, and I want to make sure I am thoroughly going to use my products. Now, I'm gonna sit here and say that, but then I'm also gonna be completely and utterly honest, because like part of my no buy, one of the things I gave myself permission to buy is Disney. Now, I have skipped over some new Disney because I know like Morphe came out with a Disney collection. I won't buy Morphe. I don't like their quality at all. And I just don't feel like it aligns with what I like. I skipped over Makeup Revolution, had some new Disney. And I skipped over it because again, I don't need to just buy it just to buy it. You know what I mean? So that's part of it. But tomorrow is Thursday, and tomorrow ColourPop is coming out with the Nightmare Before Christmas collection. Now that is definitely something I want to purchase. One, Nightmare Before Christmas is one of my favorite Tim Burton films. It is one of my favorite holiday films as well. And it is I love the artwork style for it. And I love the theming for it. So it's like everything about it. And then it's also something my husband enjoys. And y'all may not know this, but we've talked about like when we moved to Florida, I want to get a black Christmas tree. Well, not just a Christmas tree, but I want to get a black tree to set up at Halloween to be able to leave up all through the holidays. And I want to change my Christmas stuff to Nightmare Before Christmas theme. Because we love it so. I mean, Oogie Boogie is one of my favorite Disney villains. Roll the dice. I just think he's so cool. And then I love Lock, Shock, and Barrel. Not Lock, Shot, and Barrel, Lock, Shock, and Barrel. So I'm going to purchase that as long as I can get it. I know it's going to be an extremely popular collection, but again, that's okay. If I get it, I get it. If I don't, it's not the end of the world. ColourPop will probably restock it. You know, all of their stuff that is supposed to be like limited edition a lot of times doesn't end up being limited edition, if you know what I mean. I'm sure you do. It's kind of like everybody went and rushed and bought the Hocus Pocus collection from last year because it was supposed to be a limited edition. Well, guess what? They brought it back this year whenever they released the new Hocus Pocus collection. So it's like, okay, even the things that are supposed to be limited edition aren't always. But even if they are, ColourPop tends to dupe themselves quite a bit. Now, am I buying it because ColourPop has my favorite eyeshadow formula? No, not at all. And I guess the best way for me to say that is like with ColourPop. Their formulas, okay. Their mattes are decent. I think they're good. Their shimmers are okay. They're not my favorites. I want more bang for my buck for shimmers. I like things that have like a super sparkly appearance. That is something I definitely enjoy when it comes to makeup. And a lot of times ColourPop, unless you're looking at a glitter eyeshadow or one of their super shocks, their formula just isn't super duper shiny. I typically don't really care for most other products that come from ColourPop. Like, I'm not obsessed with a whole lot of anything from ColourPop. Again, I really enjoy their Disney collections, but that partially has to do with the fact of, well, I'm Disney obsessed, and ColourPop does do beautiful, beautiful artwork, and that always draws me in. A lot of times the packaging and stuff like that is more so what I'm looking for versus actually caring about the product. If you hear the train, I am sorry. Around here, because we have 2 ports on either side of our town, you never know when a train's going to come, and my house is closer to the train track than the shop was, or shop is, because it's not closed yet. But I'm going to buy that. Other than that, which hasn't came yet, I made one purchase in October. Which I purchased before my low buy started, or the day my low buy started, which was the Pat McGrath, the highlighter and the 2 quads. But again, Pat McGrath is part of what I can purchase. But I also purchased from Notoriously Morbid. I bought the Loki palette. It is a little 9-pan palette. It's super cute. It is greens and there's some multi-chromes in it. It was $29, and then with shipping I think I paid $34 out the door, because I didn't buy anything extra to get free shipping, which is something I would typically do, because again, I just don't need to buy things to get free shipping just to have things sit in my collection. I mean, that doesn't seem financially smart. I could be wrong, but that doesn't seem financially smart to me. But yeah, I mean, so that's part of it again, is I just don't need it all. And that is, again, okay for me to say about myself personally. And it is not me judging anybody else. If you want to go and buy every single luxury product that comes out, that is completely and utterly your prerogative, and that is okay. You know, even if you don't have the money for it, it is not my place or anybody's place to tell you what you can and cannot spend money on. You know, and I think that is something that is extremely hard for some people to understand, is that just because you think that you should judge somebody for what they're buying doesn't mean you actually should. I mean, let's get that perfectly clear. You know, it's like those without sin cast the first stone. Those who live in glass houses, you know. And part of the reason why I say this is because, like, with my mother-in-law and stuff, and we've had discussions about this, that she was always like, well, I don't know why you buy all the makeup. She just didn't get it. So one day I sat down with her and was like, look, you don't get why I buy all the makeup, but I don't get why you would buy a $5,000 sewing machine, or a $10,000 embroidery machine, or, you know, those are things that I would never spend my money on. But does that mean that it is any less value to her? No, it doesn't. And that is the thing I think that most people need to stop and, you know, really start to think about and get through their heads, that just because you think something someone's doing isn't okay, that doesn't mean you should judge them for it. Because, you know, everybody has their own life and they're allowed to make their own choices. Period. And I think those are things that get forgotten a lot because it's like, oh, we're so used to hiding behind the internet and being able to judge people. I mean, and we've always done it. Let's not get things twisted. Even before the internet, you know, there's a reason why there's a song called Harper Valley PTA. You know, that people get judged for how they dress and have forever, or what they do. But the thing that I am saying is we shouldn't. You know, again, if you don't agree with something, guess what? If it ain't hurting you, what does it matter? It doesn't. You know, I have heard people, like, when it comes to different things like with sexual orientation and gender and stuff like that, and they'll be like, oh, but it's wrong. Again, you can think that all you want to. It is a free country. You are allowed to think your thoughts. You are allowed to say your thoughts. But that doesn't mean you should. And I hate to say it, but honestly, in my opinion, if Jesus came back, he would be so angry with so many, because again, it ain't your place to judge. You know, it's like whenever men would look at women in Jesus's time and he knew about it and say that they were tempting, he would say, like, well, no, they shouldn't tempt you, and if they do, you need to gouge your eyes out. It's not her fault, you know. So we need to remember those things and those lessons. Just because you don't think it's okay, it's not your place for anything. Now, this wasn't like me to be harpy or anything like that, but it's like when you put yourself out there on the internet, a lot of times we get judged. We get judged on everything from our appearance to how we talk to everything. And I've had mostly positive interactions of my time being on social media, but I have had a lot of negative things as well. You know, I have had some very ugly comments. And again, I don't think that's okay. Like, I had one person, whenever on my crafting channel, you know, tell me I was a bad mom because I let my kid read and watch Harry Potter. Why? I don't know. You know, again, I feel like only God can judge me. But we've kind of gone off on a tangent, more so than what I was expecting, talking about my low-buy. But I feel like it's important when talking about this stuff as well. You can see I don't know if you can see my lip tremoring, my muscle spasms. But yeah, I don't know, trying to talk and do this, which is very difficult because my lips are tremoring so bad. But it's also that these are things that, again, isn't our place to judge. It's kind of like whenever I was younger, and I'll freely admit to this until I understood it. When I was younger and my kids were little, and we would go to the grocery store or whatever, and I would see a kid, you know, 6, 7 and older, throwing a fit. It's like, you know, those parents need to teach that kid some manners and how to act in public. I would take and go, you know, my kids won't act like that. And they didn't But whenever Caden got diagnosed with Asperger's, a type of autism, and I met autistic parents because I really hadn't been exposed to it, I realized that just because a kid looks normal, because you don't think about it on a daily basis or whatever, that when a kid looks normal, that they should be normal, but a child with autism doesn't look any different on the outside. It's like someone dealing with an autoimmune disease or things like that. Just because a person doesn't look sick on the outside doesn't mean they aren't. And just because someone can't handle as much as you or do as much as you doesn't mean they're anything less than you. And it's grace. It is learning to give grace. Because I feel like that is something definitely lacking a whole lot in our world today. And, you know, if you don't like what I have to say, you can definitely unsubscribe. I mean, it ain't gonna hurt my feelings. But I do want people to understand more of what everybody else is going through. I'm gonna try to use my spider stand. Let's see how this goes. Ooh, cute. I think I'm gonna leave it like that. But yeah, I mean, again, that's part of it. But I did purchase the Loki palette. I am purchasing the Nightmare Before Christmas. Melt is finally starting to sneak peek some of their holiday stuff, so I'm super excited for that. I don't think Mama Pat's gonna come out with anything else this year. Natasha might come out with a $129 palette for holiday. She typically does, but that doesn't mean she will this year because there are a lot of things that are limited. But yeah, I mean, that's all part of it. Hopefully what I'm saying makes sense, and I'm sorry I got off onto a tangent, but I was thinking about a lot of things, and it's like, okay, how do I want to handle this? What matters to me? And these are the things that matter to me. So, if you like this video, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button right down below. And if you hit the notification bell icon next to it, that will notify you when I post new videos, which is typically Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but I have been dealing with quite a bit of health issues, and hopefully those will be resolved soon, or like not really resolved, but my medication will be straight, and then things can kind of go back to normal. But until then, posting will be sporadic. But yeah, thank you for sticking with me. Thank you for listening. If you stayed for the entire conversation, leave me a purple heart down below. But I guess that's it. So we'll see y'all later.